So is there any sound now maybe? Or I haven't joined with... Okay, so if anyone is hearing and... Okay. Am I unmuted? Okay, I only hear my buzzing voice, same system. Select microphone, system, oh my God. No sound guardian. Okay, no, yes, now yes. Yes, you can hear me. Oh my God. Oh my, okay, so technology is not on our side today. Oh my God. Okay, you have to repeat everything. Okay, so I'm going to do like a quick overview for it. So we've been having some issues with the whole time delay stuff here. And also Higher Vibrations is joining us. I think you can come in. Hello, Higher Vibrations. So all the time I was like muted for some reason. I was trying to use my headphones and it seems it didn't work. Oops. But at least we are here. you managed to came too, so awesome. Thank you for being here, High Vibrations.
Thank you.
I've been just like trying to explain this whole time difference stuff. Like I'm on the other part of the world than the majority of our community. To my knowledge, most of you are from America. I live in Eastern Europe. And also we have the daylight saving stuff. And I think we're still going to be like 1 hour apart for 1 week or so, I think. Right. Yeah, like, right. So that adds a lot too. Like I have to like reschedule, like resend invitations to everyone in our Patreon community. Since tomorrow we're going to have a group meditation on how to be a clearer channel, how to bring forth guidance, healing, information in a more conscious way. That's what we're going to do not today, but tomorrow in our Patreon community. And I had to like correct that too, since someone pointed out from the community that the time was not correct.
Yeah. And that's because your country, the area that you live, the daylight savings does happen like 2 weeks later, I think. Ours was, I believe, on the 12th, and yours isn't going to happen until the 27th.
Yeah, it makes no sense when you think about it.
It's already confusing enough. They have to add things to it.
Yeah, like, don't we live on the same world? Like, right. Like, why do we have to have it 2 weeks later? Like, I don't know. Like, yeah. There's so much confusing stuff happening. So it's awesome that you were able to come. So yeah. you have resolved everything.
Yes, I didn't think I was going to be able to make it today. So I'm happy that it worked out and I was able to come. Just barely.
Yeah, me too. Like we had some technical difficulties around here too. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like also our main topic for today is how to connect with our higher selves. Like what is our higher self? And the majority of you have voted for how to ground our higher selves in our day-to-day reality. And I think, hello, Cosmin and everything, yeah, everyone else, thank you for joining. And in the beginning, I think I will go into like kind of what is our higher self, because like it's like a super broad term that we use for a version of us that is on the higher planes, but it's far more complex than that. Like there's so many facets of it, like so many parts of it that we don't understand and probably will never be able to understand. Yeah, like because it's like super complex. I think like you can think of your higher self as like like just as it says, like a higher version of you, and it may be like I think it's like something that is present in all planes and dimensions, and a part of you that gives you higher guidance. And depending on what you need or what you're doing at any specific time, you tap into different parts of it. And this can be like maybe another lifetime of yours, you on a higher plane, or maybe you on another dimension or star system, or a version of you that is much more evolved than what is here right now in this plane. And also like it can merge too. So maybe multiple versions of you are like uniting to bring forth a simple or like a single perspective, or to bring forth inspiration, guidance, whatever you need at any given moment, depending on what you're doing. And it can work for whatever, like you want to do maybe a healing session, or you want to write something, or you just want to ask questions like, what's the best part to start when I'm cleaning the house? Or so it can be like whatever. You can receive guidance and assistance for whatever type of topic or that you need to have, basically. And you're going to tap into perspectives of you from other timelines, from other dimensions that have like a much better view on how things flow here, because like your higher self can see a lot more. Like when we are in this 3D reality, we can like barely perceive what's around us at any given moment. Like we can get like impressions of like what could happen or what has happened to a certain extent. But like our higher self is the version of us that is able to like perceive all timelines and also like see that, okay, like if you're doing this right now, then that will happen. So in order to like avoid that, then right now you should probably go in a different direction or something similar. And most of the time we have like no clue why, or like why we are guided in a specific way. And I think most of us are, I wouldn't say like struggling with understanding it, but yeah, like most of the time we have like no clue, like why are we receiving this type of guidance, or why should I do this rather than that? And usually later it makes more sense when we like actually get there. But yeah, it's a very much like a learning curve for all of us, like how this works.
Right. And if I might add something to that.
Yeah.
So hey, it's 111 here, by the way. I'd love to see
2211 here.
So many of us have had our return to source experience, and in that experience, for me, I found the easiest way to describe or explain what a higher self really is. And at the start, there's this. It was basically this amazing and beautiful ball of nothing but the purest love, and that's God, right? And in that, there was a decision made or a choice or whatever, and the bursts of separation occurred, and not real separation, but arms happened, and when each polarity. And the cool thing about this is to understand is that then it's that those polarities separate again and again and again, and so we are all of and part of Creator God source, but we are these separate fragmented parts of that. And so as we fragment multiple times, do the mathematical equation, it's amazing how many have gone out into the universe, into the cosmos, and all in many dimensions in space and frequencies. And then when there's a merging of higher selves and a merging with self up into a higher self, all that is that at that point, our soul that we are the fragment that we currently are in using to embody this form has completed some type of schooling or requirement in order to achieve that next level up. And then in that time, those fragments get to be reunited again, even though we're never really separate. And through that, there's an understanding there's almost an absorption of self where we get to combine, and then there's a higher understanding that happens when we're interacting with those higher selves. And again, just like you just said, how we're all, there a lot of them can merge to help and assist in a specific goal or time frame. It's similar when we connect those higher selves, all a higher self is us at a different space, like you said. And time in a linear format is not true. It's not true in most places. In most places, it's a circle that you stand in the middle and you get to touch at any moment. And for instance, a lot of us have had recent past lives that were 2,000 years from now, but that was still your most recent past life if you try to convert it into the linear format.
Like linearly, yeah.
Yeah, there's no linear in anything else that I've been able to experience except for here. And so just to help there be some kind of clarity that we are all together connected. And that's why so many of us are having these memories of past lives, that we're finding out that perhaps this specific fragment did not have, but you did have, because we were there, because we are the all, we are of all. And I hope that wasn't too much of a rambly explanation, but
no, like it's like a very tricky and complex subject, basically, which I don't think we can really like put it into words properly. Like we
yes.
all have the one higher self, like the one or source or whatever you want to call it. That's our highest higher self, basically, where everything merges into one. And through that we're like connected, and everything else like is like a different perspective of the same thing. And we're basically like reflecting on each other, or you're reflecting on a different version of yourself, basically, or something similar,
Right.
to create new stuff and experience interesting new stuff that you can do here. Yeah, like that's also like what I'm always like getting through the channelings too, that creation and like all life exists, so it can like explore new ways of how things can function or what can be created,
Right.
and gain new experiences on like what can exist and what can we do and what can we achieve in creation, basically. And yeah, like here on planet Earth, we have went like very low from that point of view. Like, I mean, like more separate from the whole state of oneness and unconditional love, and explored for quite some time. Like, what does it feel like to feel to be separate, to be like isolated? And you can see that, yeah, like you can look back in history and also today, like how much destruction and chaos that whole perspective caused, like feeling separate from everyone else and like from everything else too. Like that's what we're promoting so much in our culture too, that you're like this isolated thing and you're not even one with nature or anything.
Yes.
Like a man stands above all everything else. And yeah, like we kind of move out from that old paradigm that like God only created Earth and mankind.
Right.
I think we kind of progressed a bit further from that, but yeah, like that's also very isolating.
Yeah.
Like, wouldn't that be like a super waste of space too?
Right.
all
Right.
that emptiness. Yeah, like, and slowly we're like peeling through those layers. And yeah, like we're breaking new grounds, although at the same time, yeah, like the forces that are trying to keep everyone like isolated and in a box are doing their best to like keep everything as it was, for basically their whole existence depends on that everyone feels isolated and weak and alone. And thank God, like, yeah, like it's so like ironic that in the past 2 years, like so many of us were like locked down basically. But in a certain sense, we united so much. Like I've seen in the broader spiritual community, like people coming together and like actually seeking out each other and like connecting in a more direct way. Like up until now, we were like so scattered, like we still are. We're like still like strategically placed on different parts of the world, so like we can have like maximum effect on what we do. But thanks to the internet and modern technology, like we can unite and not feel as separate and alone as we were before. Because like I think like a main theme for all of us, like we're the black sheep of our family, and like we don't fit in everywhere anywhere.
Right. Yeah.
It's been pretty difficult for all of us, especially right now that everyone is going through this great upheaval and realizing that not all is as it seems in the world.
Right.
And we're absorbing that too, sadly, very much so.
The revelation needs to occur in order for all to wake up, you know, and to have that awakening experience. It's that it's much like trying to tell a teenager what happens if you do XYZ. This is what happened to me. Don't do that kind of thing. They're going to do it anyway, and they're going to find out what it's like. You know, they have to do that. That's part of the learning process, you know, and then it's a much different thing, but that's the best example I can think of that we are all going through at this time too. Everyone has to have their own awakening journey and to experience that, and to have those dark night of the soul moments, you know, where it's actually the light being shown on the soul so we can see where it needs dusting is all, you know. But it can seem really unpleasant and scary and uncomfortable while it's happening, because we have spent so much of our time in this existence in living a lie. I can't think of a better way of saying that, and not knowing that we were.
Yeah, like it's an illusion. The whole thing that we were like immersed in is like an illusion of being separate from God, basically,
Right.
and everything that comes with it. Yeah.
Which, by the way, that is always what, because I mean, like a lot of us, I've had a handful of near-death experiences, and that is always what's asked of me. What is it like? The illusion of separation is not something that can be recreated in any other experience. To have that illusion of separation is something they crave, you know, along with mourning loss and suffering, chronic depression, those kinds of things as well. They don't know what sadness is like. The idea that the mourning of someone dying and that you don't know them anymore, that they're gone, that's not something that's an illusion also. And so those are the things that these energies crave the experience for and want to know about. They don't, the love and joy and all that stuff, they got that, they know what that's like, you know. But it's just kind of ironic to think the stuff that we try to avoid, that most people who self-medicate or whatever are trying to escape from, are those things that everyone else in the universe wish they could have too. Isn't that just
And
amazing?
when they get there, they're like, oh my God, like how can I get back?
Yeah. Never mind.
Yeah, it's not that fun.
Excuse me.
Okay, so Christina asked the question. So what is the difference in insights from our higher self versus our spirit guides? Why do we have both? In other words, thank you. Yeah, like that's an awesome question. I think like both are the same to a certain extent. Yeah, like just as high vibration explained that you have like the highest higher self, which is like complete oneness, and like basically our guides are like fractals of that ultimate state of higher self, basically. And yeah, like just as we said that depending on like what you do or what you need, like different aspects of your higher self come in to assist you and guide you with that specific need that you have at that moment, or at least that's kind of how I see it.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a good explanation. And that's where it's complicated, because there's a way that we have in this experience where there's categorization, that it's easy to see the separate. And again, it's the separation stuff again, you know, where that guy's Bob and that's Carl, you know, and like, whereas when we're in this other experience, everyone is everyone, but they're all separate, but differently separated, and we feel we are separate, you know, like more like, again, I'm using the same reference, but the Amazon rainforest. Each one of those trees in that forest is a separate entity or being. However, the way that they communicate and they participate with one another, they actually experience and thrive as one single organism and participate in as one being. And so, you know, each one of those trees is separate. Each one of their guides and higher selves and us are separate, but we are also still the same singular being. So it's complicated to say what the answer is to that, because it's all of it.
Yeah, like, yeah, that's very complicated too. Yeah, like it's 22:22 here too. Hello, Cosmin. Yeah, we're on the same timeline here with Cosmin. Okay, so yeah, like we've been talking kind of about like what can our higher selves be, but how can like we live from that perspective more, like how to ground it, because I think for all of us, like at the beginning, you have your spiritual life and you like meditate and read about this stuff or listen to such videos, and you're like very much tapped into that energy and that mindset of like how things work on the higher planes and like manifestation, being an empath and all that. And after that, you like go back to your real mundane life, which kind of feels very much separate because like all of it's so linear and stagnant and very rigid. And like our higher selves and the higher realms and all the information that we get from there is like super fluid and like non-linear. And that's kind of why we have difficulty understanding it, in my opinion.
Like curve instead of the sharp corners too.
Yeah, and it's very difficult to interpret it because like our mind, our logical mind is very much like geared towards like surviving in this 3D reality here and experiencing this linear life, basically. And that's why we get so many inspirations that we don't understand, in my opinion. But the more we listen, like that's the shortest answer to, the more we listen, the more clearer it will be.
Right.
And yeah, like at the beginning, the easiest way is to tune into it during your meditations. You can also receive guidance through whatever shapes, means, or forms that make sense to you. Like especially in the beginning, if you haven't really developed your vocabulary or like means of communication with your higher self or guides, I think there's like for everyone this process in the beginning of experimentation that you like receive interesting maybe visions or weird stuff happen, synchronicities, or like for some people like maybe an object moves into a room or books fly off the shelf or whatever. Like it can be whatever makes sense to you. And after a time you kind of like develop a language or like a way of communication, like okay, like this is okay to receive messages in this way, but I really don't like when like stuff move in my room or things like that's kind of creepy. But yeah, like you can like develop that and consciously make a statement like, okay, like I'm okay with this type of inspiration or communication, but I don't want that anymore. Okay.
Right.
And yeah, like the easier it is when you're like tuning out of this day-to-day reality, basically, aka like during meditation time, or you're doing a hypnotic regression, or just before you go to sleep when your like logical mind is shut off, basically. And that's basically when we get information the most clearly. And after that, yeah, like you can exercise maintaining that state during your day-to-day activities too. Like that's kind of what I've been experimenting with for the past few years, to keep that connection like alive, even if I'm like cleaning the house or doing the dishes or doing some kind of monotone work, to maintain that state of connection. And in the beginning it's very difficult, but the more you do it, it becomes easier. And also now the collective has changed a lot, so it's far easier to do it right now. We are far more interconnected. There isn't as much crap in the collective as it was like 2 years ago.
Right.
We've done a lot of spring cleanings in the past 2 years on all levels. And yeah, like all these stuff that you can very easily tap into this. Also, I don't know, like, do you call it the Akashic records or some kind of information database that we have? You can very easily tap into it. You don't have to go to a hypnotic regression or do some kind of rituals to access it. After a time, or very easily after some time of practicing and you getting a hang of how it works and how it feels, you will be just able to think of it and it just happens. Like you can like imagine it like having a conversation with your guys, just as we are having right now. Like, okay, like I don't know, like maybe I'm cleaning the house or washing the dishes, and I have a few questions, and maybe you can address it to your guides or your higher self, whatever works for you. And you ask the questions, and after that you just just open to receive whatever. Yeah, basically your own voice, your own inner voice will be the one that's going to like answer to it. And like try not to rationalize it, just go with what comes first.
Right.
Just let it flow and see what happens. You'll be amazed.
Yeah, it just happens naturally. I've had that experience most of my life where it's just been like this conversation almost, where it's just like, and it's not just conversation, like the other things that you were talking about trying to get attention by flickering lights or whatever like that's mainly when I'm refusing to listen. I'm a little bit defiant and kind of do my own thing too. And so there's definitely, hey, it's time for you to listen kind of stuff, but for the most part, it's a conversation. And like, it's not just with hearing an internal voice or an external voice or anything like that. It's mostly, or often it's that feeling, if it feels like it's something of love, then it's like, oh yeah, you're doing the right thing. That's the right path. And as we we have a series of decisions that we make that are countless here, but each time that a decision is made, or a life choice is made that's toward this higher self frequency space, the more that they looks like steps, but they're glowing, and they look almost kind of like clouds, but they're steps on a stairway or a staircase, and you each action toward your true self is what it is when you're acting as true self instead of it acting as ego or whatever. I don't know another word to use it than ego. The closer and higher frequency space and mergement occurs at that time, and so both of those things that we've discussed are the same topic in my mind. And because of that, like, as you have these conversations, you're realizing the decisions to be made, and as you're realizing the decisions to be made, you make the decision that's true for your true self. And as you make those decisions, you begin to merge with your closest higher self. And the best way to ground that, in my experience, and to have that be in my everyday world, is simply to allow myself to play. I find that when I'm in a state of play, and what I mean by that, it's not always going to be, I'm not going to get to play in the sand and jump rope every second of the day, but like whatever it is I'm doing, to do it with like a playful heart. As I do that, I find that in order to, that I'm then in that almost, I can maintain that 0 point place. Like, I don't need to use meditation to go there anymore. Meditation helped me practice to do that, and I still use meditation. However, I don't have to in order to go there anymore. And that's only because I've practiced for so long, and it takes a while. And so as a result, when we engage in these things that come in and out of our lives, yeah, they're like lessons or school or whatever, but like, they're giving us opportunities for those moments to take another step. Do you want it to go this way, or do you want to go that way? You can. The law of the universe is the law of free will. You can choose the opposite from true self. That is your decision to make. But I'm betting everybody here on your channel right now are choosing their true self. Why else would they be here to learn this? And so if it feels in harmony with you, you're on the right path. And yeah, I don't hear voices outside me, but I do say it sounds like my own voice, my own thought processes most of the time, though it feels it doesn't feel like me is the thing. There's a feeling for me that kind of lasts. You can tell almost the identity of the person, that the entity that I'm interacting with, because they feel different. Like, you can feel their presence while you're getting that message back. And most times there's multiple people or beings present, usually about 3. Almost always there's 3 for me.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, and you can also like tell the difference because of the information that comes through, like the wording maybe.
Yeah.
Or like the whole perspective is like something that you wouldn't have thought about normally or at all. Like I had that too a lot of times. Like I asked stuff and I got like a completely like fresh perspective on like very mundane day-to-day stuff, like things that we take for granted. And they offered me like a perspective to the whole thing that I like would have never considered. Like, and it's completely took like a completely new spin on the whole thing. That was, yeah, like, and it also helped. I think it was like more with the ETs that we live our lives in a specific way. And we were like super used to how things work, and they brought a completely different perspective to the whole thing that for us it's normal.
Right.
And we accept it as a normal behavior or activities. And it gave me like a completely different perspective. And it also helped me like better understand things that I was like working on, like I think it's called like in my social life. Yeah, like interacting with other people and like what are they going through and like what I am going through. And from their perspective, like, okay, like it's okay that what you're going through, but you're also going through their own stuff. Right. And you kind of have to work with that because most of the, I don't know, like people who surround you are not very much aware of these stuff. Like they don't sense your energies, or they are not empathic or sensitive enough to like tap into your field and sense like okay, like maybe I shouldn't say that right now, or I should phrase stuff a bit differently so it's far more acceptable.
Right.
But at least we like have the insight, and you can use it to your advantage too. Because since I became like very aware and conscious of how these stuff work and how I can like tap into other people's energies and read them. Like I don't read their thoughts or anything. Although if they expose their thoughts, then I can do that too. But they have to give it permission in a sense that, okay, like they're thinking of something and they're also elaborating on it. So the more they reveal, the more I can go deeper into it, basically. But I can't forcibly remove information or go into their minds. So you can't do that. You can only do it in Star Wars movies.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what. Sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to add and finish to that okay, like we are able to sense other people's energies, and like how you can use that whole thing to your advantage in like social situations instead of like being a victim to it. Because like most of the time, I think like we sense that we are like victims of like other people's problems and energies, because like we get like inundated by it. By like reading other people's energies and stuff, especially if you've known them for a few times, if you had like interactions with them, then you kind of get a hang of how they function mentally. And like when you want to do stuff with them or ask them something, or you have to work together on something, and like it's like a super gives you like a big edge on how to interact with people.
Right.
Because as I have stated, you have this understanding that, okay, like right now that person is in this mood or they're going through this. And right now I have to address certain issues in a specific way to make it work.
Right. Yeah. It's like the blueprint or the manual how to work the person, but not work them. It's just how to harmoniously interact in a loving way.
Yeah, and I also noticed that people who are not aware of these stuff, like I haven't noticed it like 10 years ago because since wasn't awake at all too. But I noticed some people who are not very much in tune to these stuff, that they're addressing and handling and interacting with people from a very linear and logical way. Like almost like, okay, like I have a formula for this and I'm going to put you in this mold and I'm going to interact with you this way, even though it like makes no sense in the specific situation. But it's almost like they don't know what else to do, so they're going to follow their formula. Or that's kind of what I've noticed for many people.
Yeah. And to talk about a little bit about the understanding or receiving information from people that is not mind reading exactly, but to me, how I see it is just before we speak, we send a parcel ahead of us full of all these different layers of information, just like you get when you interact with higher beings too. It's not verbal communication, it's like information. It's got different sensory stuff, images and things like that. And just before a person speaks with the intention of giving me that information, before their voice can project, the information comes to me. And that's because it's given, and it's kind of fun though, or funny, I don't know which one, when you're interacting in a larger group, and an individual keeps trying to talk and they don't really get a chance yet. That information packet has been in my possession for 20 minutes. Sometimes I've already pulled all the layers apart. I already know what they're going to say. And now I'm ready to say my part, but they haven't even talked yet. So you're like, okay, I gotta be patient. Don't answer them yet, even though I know what that person's going to say. And it's kind of entertaining, I guess. But that's hard for me to remember, to be polite and let them say it, because in order to, they feel like they need to be heard by speaking it with their words, and so it's kind of funny.
Yeah. And I also noticed, like not many times, but you have like people who are trying to, I wouldn't say like deceive you, but like mislead you in certain directions, or like hide stuff. Right. And when they try to hide things, that's when they reveal it.
Right.
Because they think of the thing that they're trying to hide.
Right.
So basically they're bringing it forth energetically, because like, I don't want him to know about this and that, or I shouldn't know about this and that. And basically you're like exposing it at that time.
Right. Yeah. How could I not tell him? And then you tell him that way though.
Or like I also heard this from other sensitive people too, that you have people who are trying to like convince you of something, but their energy says the exact opposite.
Yeah.
And you're like, no, thank you.
Right.
I don't want that.
And that's the most beautiful thing too, that I keep thinking I haven't said yet, is that we are all equipped before we come here with this amazing tool of spiritual discernment, you know, and not just with interactions with other physical beings that we have on this plane, but with all energies, you know, and as they come through, because I know that there's likely going to be that question of how do I know that that higher self is calling itself higher self or whatever. If it's for your highest good, it has to answer back, you know. And so, you know, and you know that inside you can feel it. If it feels of love, if you still have a question, send love to it. If it does not answer back with love, or let me rephrase that, if it will either, if it is of love, it will answer back with love. If it is not of love, it will flee. For the tool of love is the most powerful tool of the universe. Like, people are always, you know, you think that the most powerful tool are the negative, darker things, but it's not true. Like, compared to, for instance, an atomic bomb, love can heal away all the bad stuff so much faster and more brilliantly than anything like that. And so, yeah, that's a tool to utilize if you have any questions about what intention that an individual or that energy has in your presence.
Yeah, like just like Darth Vader has says, the ability to destroy a planet is insignificant next to the power of the Force.
Right, exactly. Yes, thank you. I forgot about that. Yes.
Okay, that's like very strange. Like while you were explaining that, I was reading the question of Agnieszka. I probably haven't read it correctly. And she asked, I had those some voices that didn't tell me the right direction, really. So are there any other guides? How to know which are the goods and which are not? So yeah, like you,
Perfect.
yeah, like you pretty much answered that okay, like what I do usually is like how does that feel, like what you're receiving, the information or that presence, or like do you feel supported, grounded, comfortable with it? Does it feel loving too and supportive?
Safe.
Yeah, and if you're feeling like anxious or uncomfortable or maybe even in fear, like that's the most extreme basically. But if it doesn't feel right or it doesn't resonate to you, then probably it's not, and you can send it away. You can absolutely do that. You don't have to leave it there or ignore it. I think like that's the worst thing that you can do, like ignore it and pretend that it's not there.
Right. Yeah.
No, like just send it away. Just as higher vibrations said, like send it love and it will have to leave because it's not of that vibration, basically.
They don't like it. It's like repellent. It's, you know, if you send love to somebody that's not of love, it's unpleasant. And lots of times it will cause them harm to remain in the space of love.
Yeah, like I usually send them fire and they don't like that either. Like,
you're a man. Men always use destructive. No, I'm kidding. I'm sorry. I was trying to be funny.
Yeah, I do. I create like a circle of fire and I expand it and they leave. They don't like that.
Right.
Okay.
And that fire that you create is also of a loving place, you know, and that's another manifestation of that love and that powerful weapon of truth. And
yeah, like,
sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, please do.
And so, and another point too is that not every experience where they are not of your highest interest or highest good are there in order to harm you. You know, a lot of them are rogue agents that are just not doing what they're supposed to be doing and want to help and are still like, they're trying to reach a higher experience for themselves. It doesn't mean they're there intentionally to harm you. Just, it's like taking advice from a kindergartner when you're in college, you know, like they don't really know what's going on, you know, so it may not be there intentionally to cause you harm. They're just not the right frequency for you. in your
Yeah, like,
experience?
do you refer to, I think like many people when they begin their spiritual journey, like you have, I think it's called the Ouija board or whatever.
Board, yeah.
Like in the beginning when you discover like spirituality and you have spirits and all that, and you like connect with like deceased people or like disincarnate beings that are not very high vibrational. And
Right.
yeah, like maybe they can like see and perceive stuff that you don't see, but that doesn't really make them a good source of information or a good
Right.
guide.
Right. Exactly. And
Okay.
that doesn't, oh yeah, it's 144.
Yeah.
144,000. I always see that number whenever it comes up. The other thing that I think is important to talk about too is just that, again, going back to that spiritual discernment. The spiritual discernment is one of our most powerful tools, and to, you know, how it feels inside. And I just wanted to, you said it already a couple of times, but I just feel like I need to say it again, that if it feels uncomfortable or unsafe in any way, that's all you need to know, you know, and to utilize the tools we talked about. Every one of us has it. That was what I'm trying to say. You have that in you. It's available to you.
Yeah, like Christina asked, like, who are they? The entities that shun love. Yeah, like just as you said, that they don't necessarily have to know like what or who they are, just you can go by the feeling. Okay, like, is this okay? Like, or do they feel safe? Okay, are you supported? Or maybe you're disempowered. Like in some cases, it can also be like draining.
Yeah.
Or some of them are like very much these like energy vampires and are only hanging around you to feed off your energy, basically. So yeah, like you can absolutely like remove them from your presence. You don't have to ignore them or to, you know, like suffer their presence or like accept them into your life. You don't have to.
Right.
And yeah, like remove them. You can do this, what Harry Vibration said, like send them love, clear your space. I use the eternal fire, or you can use like the violet flame to clear yourself, like your own field, because usually when they come close to us, they can leave an imprint. Some can also leave like implants or attachments. Like it doesn't happen always, so you don't have to panic or anything.
Right.
But yeah, like that's a possibility too. Like if you had like a psychic attack or something, that's also a possibility. Or I've also heard and seen like if you're taking some kind of medication, then also you can like expose yourself more to those types of frequencies. Like certain medications like alters your brain chemistry, so you're more open to receive those types of vibrations. Also, if you're consuming a lot of alcohol, or if you're like drunk, or if you're on drugs and you're like unconscious of yourself, or you kind of like losing control over your own life, and that's also like exposing you to that type of energy. And I think like the basic theme of there is that as long as you like don't take responsibility and control for your own life, then something else will come in and do that for you. And that's kind of the main theme for the past 2 years too. If you don't take responsibility for your own life and all that, then someone else will come in and do it for you.
Until you choose to take the wheel back again. And by doing that is simply sending the love at it. Like the Guardian was saying, the thing is, we're such powerful beings. We can literally 100% transmute anything, you know, like all of us, I imagine anyway. I mean, it's pretty common that as a human on this experience at this time, that we have had some type of chemical that was disharmonious to our system introduced into our bodies. And you know, the stuff that hangs around, it would hang around and still be around if we were not able to transmute that, you know. And simply by making these choices of higher self and clearing self, using meditation, you know, and asking for the healing to come, bringing in archangels helps a lot too. And archangels are another form of higher self. You know, it's just, you know, depending on what tier of the ladder rung you're looking at, you know, we're all in this together. When I say that, I don't mean just us on this earth plane. This is a big team. Our team goes all the way back to source, you know, like we are this amazing thing. And, you know, so there's, and And it's something else too about source being all this beautiful love. The opposite of love is fear. And that's why we feel those fear-like experiences when we have an experience with somebody who's lower dimensional, because they're farther away from source. They have disconnected themselves in some way. And that's another reason, that's also a reason why we're being often, in many situations, through certain media kind of experiences and so on, we're being fed fear-inducing experiences to try to pull us away from our power. The more you go toward that love, the more empowered that you are. We have two choices in this experience. We choose service to self or service to others. Service to self doesn't mean I'm going to make sure that my body's healthy. That's important stuff. Service to self is stuff like warlord bad stuff. You know what I mean? Like not caring about others and lack of empathy and causing harm just for whatever reason. And
yeah, like, you know, like exploiting other people's for your own personal gain.
yes,
Basically
right,
what you can see across the world.
right. You know, and all of us here right now are service to others. You know, we have this service oriented way about us that whether or not, like, you're not going to see somebody fall down where you could help them and not help them. That's you know, or whatever. I can't even think, you know, but therefore just we are on the right path. There's no reason to be alarmed or afraid. It's just good to have the information. So if these things come about, you know what to do, you know, and send love to it. Use the flames. There's a lot. And when you start using the violet flame meditation stuff, don't worry about what color it ends up being. Like that's the one thing I've been hearing a lot of people report back to. They're concerned that they're doing it wrong because the flame changes color. It almost always does. Allow it to be the color that it needs to be.
Yeah, I think like people also told me like they're losing control over it.
Yeah.
It's not the proper color. Yeah, like Rachel asked like she didn't ask a question, but it's a great statement. We can transform fear into excitement. It's the same vibration. Yeah, like I've used it in a way that I transform fear into like curiosity. When you like have a very I started this practice when I had like these ET experiences, or also when I had my spiritual awakening and I was like exposed to many dark stuff basically. And yeah, like in the beginning it can be very scary because you don't know what it is and where it comes from and what effect it has. And like transform it that like, okay, like I'm scared of it because it's the great unknown.
Right.
So let's like I will inform myself and see what is there, because like if I shine my light on it and it's not a big black gaping hole, the great unknown, then it's not that scary anymore. Like that's kind of also, I think like that's the main thing here on planet Earth, that we're most afraid of the great unknown because there are like so many uncertainties in this life. And like we're really scared of that. Like I haven't gone past that, so I still get it from time to time, especially in the past 2 years. Like, okay, like what is going to happen to us?
Right. Yeah.
I still have that from time to time, but I kind of learned to like manage it better. And instead of like going into full on victim mode as I was like before, and like feeling sorry for myself, like what I have to go through, instead of like, okay, like just stop for a second, like don't go with it, and like from an objective perspective, like observe and see like, okay, like what is happening, like what is this, and like what can I do about it to change it, rather than just go deep into that gaping hole where a lot of fear is waiting for you.
Right. You know, and allowing ourselves to go with the flow a lot of times is hard for many of us. I don't know about you guys, but I was a planner. I was a list maker and maybe even a little bit of a control freak. I always had some type of control in the situations I was in. And this whole lockdown thing assisted me to get to let go of that stuff and be okay with just, let's see what's going to happen next, you know, like, and just go with it and to be okay in that space. But it is something that we learn over time. it's okay if that's if you're still there. You know, there's nothing wrong with making lists either. You know, like if you go to the store without knowing what you're gonna get, you're gonna waste your time and buy a bunch of junk food probably.
I try to find a balance between the two, since I have to do like a lot of different stuff across my day.
Right.
I do kind of make like time blocks stuff in my calendar, but I don't always follow it.
Right.
And the good stuff about like I use Google Calendars for that. Like if something I don't have time for it, you can like just click it and drag it to another day or something. Like move it around if you have
Right.
to.
That's cool. Yeah, you know, there's certain things that are important that I can't, that are in, I have to also use my calendar. You know, I mean, I'm doing these meetings, you know, with you, as well as the ones where we're doing the Zoom meetings, and there's work kind of stuff that definitely needs to be addressed. However, when it comes to the other things, you know, allow it to be what it is, you know, it, and remember again, just to do it with a playful heart, like to dance, like is one of the most powerful things, like the love that comes from that. As we let go of the things that are blocking us, we can wiggle it out through the dance, as well as at the same time celebrating the love. And you know, it's there's no surprise that dance has been part of the human experience for the entire experience that we've been here on this planet.
Yeah, dance and music is really good.
Exactly.
Yeah, I also experienced this, I think, especially this week. Like I had like so many stuff to do and you just don't have energy for it anymore. I know, like, do you have like a word for this, like the spring fatigue or something? Like the seasons are shifting
Right.
and you experience this fatigue after the winter, that the days are becoming longer. And like I have to do like so many stuff and I just
Right.
didn't have any more energy for it.
Right.
Even today I had to like squeeze in 1.5 hours of sleep so I can
Right.
stay up to have the live event.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I slept for I think more than an hour. And when I came back, I had like no clue where I was. I was
Right.
so knocked out.
That's one of the best kind of sleeps. And that's something else too. I don't know if you've noticed this, but meditating, the most optimal time to meditate changes through the seasons. And in the winter months, it's it's best to meditate late at night. And then as the sun starts to rise earlier and earlier, I've noticed that it grows closer and closer to sunrise, and then after too. And in the middle of the summer, in the middle of the afternoon is the best time for meditation when you go deep into that place. And I say meditation, but I'm also thinking of naps. Those naps that we have are not just so recharging for our physical body, but that the stuff that we get from those moments and that lucid dreaming experience is like intensified depending on the time of day that is harmonious for that time of year. And so yeah, we are in this place where it's like, yay, naps are really advantageous again. You know?
Yeah, like 10 years ago, I wouldn't have imagined myself having an afternoon nap.
Yes. I used to tease people for it, to be honest with you. I felt bad.
Now I really need it for some reason. Yeah, like also like we've been through so much. Like in the past few years, we've been changing so much and experiencing so much stuff and like working through karma, and yeah, like we've been just thrown so much stuff at us, and
Yeah.
yeah, like it's tiring. Like even our whole process before 2020 was very tiresome. And after that, like we have like amped it up like to 150,
Right.
the whole
Yes.
ascension process.
And as we welcome in all these new awakening people, we're feeling them waking up too. And it's beautiful, and it's a celebration. It does have an element where it's exhausting for us as well. You know, as we're feeling everybody coming up, there's that give and take back and forth of energy, that we're of excited, happy energy, of welcoming energy, but it does have a draining effect to it too. You know, and also the people who are maybe not waking up yet, but are being shown this information about the matrix that they've been living in for so long. There's that alarm that causes that empathic experience that even if you shield yourself, you're probably going to experience it in some regard, of that anxiety and that oh, stuff that's going on out there in the world, and we can't always avoid going into the world. And so sometimes those experiences come through to us, and that is also a different level of exhaustion that happens. Not to mention that sleep is being disrupted by now by so much education. We're in college in our sleep now, and like, I don't know about you, but there's a lot of school teaching kind of stuff happening for a lot of us in our sleep time right now.
Oh yeah, yeah. I felt like a 3D school and stuff like that were
No.
programming us for
Right.
to have sleep disorders or stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah, like but it's been happening for quite some time that we've been learning during our sleeps. Like that's when our minds are turned off a bit and like our guides can come through more easily.
Yeah. And as a result, there's a level of exhaustion that occurs from it. And, it sometimes feels like when you wake up from your sleep that you need to take a nap to recover from your sleep.
Yeah, but especially if you like go on missions or stuff like that, then yeah, and you don't remember much, but when you get up in the morning, you're more exhausted than the day before.
And there's usually, for me anyway, there's at least a vague recollection as like, wait a minute, like it'll be like an hour sometimes after waking up, even then I'll be like, oh, that just oh, wow, that amazing thing happened last night. That's right. And you will remember what you need to, and all else will still be with you, and it is serving you still. Just because that's something else that's happening to a lot of people too, is we've gone from having the ability to recall all of our dreams to now many of us aren't recalling hardly at all of any of our dreams, and that's okay. A lot of people are going through that too right now.
Yeah, I'm very happy if I don't remember anything for some reason. Like I had so many like colorful experiences and like wild nights in the past 10 years. Like when I get a good night's sleep, I'm very happy.
Yeah, that is nice.
Okay, so in closing, do you want to share something?
I'd like to make a couple of announcements, if that's okay. On Monday, we're doing a live event on my channel on Into the Awakening of Higher Vibrations. I'll leave a comment on this so people can link to it if they want. Blue Eagle is coming to, I'm going to interview her. She's going to be there and on the live, and we will have, a question and answer thing. I'll be paying close attention to the chat box and answering and we'll answer the questions that come through. And also we are going to have another free Zoom meeting for all of us to gather whenever we, on Tuesday at the regular time, 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I think it's like 8 p.m. Netherlands. And for you, it's 9 p.m. right now, Guardian. But it will be a different time for you later. And I've not been paying attention to what's being written on the chats, but I've seen a lot of names that I'm familiar with. And I just want to say thank you all for coming. I love you all so much.
Yeah, thank you very much for being here. Also, quickly, I want to answer Delia's question. What about sweating during the night? Like, like the stuff that we're going through, like this is a complex question, but yeah, like we're going through a lot, and sometimes this can have a physical effect also on your body, like what we're going through. Like some people can experience like physical marks or like signs that are physically visible on your body, depending on like what happened to you. And yeah, like it happened, I heard it from many people, like these effects, it is possible. But maybe you're just, I know, like you're going through a cleansing process and your body is like clearing itself. That also is possible too.
That tends to be the case for me in the sweating, and also like, I'm old enough now that I shouldn't have zits, right? Like, but I've been noticing that that's another way that my body's removing these chemical deposits that I've been carrying around in my body for a long time. We're doing this hyper healing experience, which is awesome, but it definitely has its physical side effects. Like it's not just sweating either. It's like cold flashes happen too. That same experience. Yeah, and it's very strange. And then all of a sudden you're just hot, and there was a time that I'm like, am I just like going through early menopause? Because there was some crazy stuff going on. And then I find out guys are going through it too. I'm like, okay. But
Yeah, I was going through that too last week, and it was like very odd. Like I looked at I think it's called a thermostat or whatever that measures the temperature in the room.
thermometer.
And I was at a thermometer and was like, okay, like theoretically I should be okay, but I'm freezing.
Yeah. And then I find myself taking this extremely hot bath, and then you look at your skin and you look like a lobster, and you feel like you're fine.
It's very odd. Yeah. But yeah, like it comes and goes, so you don't have to be super concerned about this stuff.
Right. There's a lot of ascension symptoms we're all going through right now is the point, and that you're going to be okay. This is awesome. I mean, it's DNA upgrade stuff. It's great. It's something to celebrate.
Yeah, like we're changing so much, and like this is the only side effects of it, like this exhaustion and our basic bodily functions shifting a bit from time to time.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I think it's still going to take quite a few more years for us to go through this whole process.
Right.
But yeah, like that's why we have to be gentle with ourselves and rest and take good care of ourselves each day, because like it's not going to be over tomorrow.
Right. The next 7 months are going to be fun experience for everybody.
Really? Okay. We will see. Okay, so thank you for joining us, Higher Vibration.
Thank you.
Thank you for being good, for making it after I managed to bring back my audio.
That's perfect timing.
Yeah. And thank you everyone for joining us. I also seen many familiar faces, also from our Patreon community too, and also from the chats that we are having during the Tuesdays. I think that's when the last time we had it. Okay, so thank you for joining us, for being here. Lots of love to you, and have an awesome full moon tomorrow.
And see you tomorrow on your Patreon.
Yeah, like doing our group meditation on how to be a clearer channel while we are here on planet Earth.
Right.
Okay, so bye everyone. Have a great week and have a great weekend too.